for you. So go ahead, get started on these. I'm going to put up a clock. I'm going to do 3 minutes to do these 2 problems. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Hope you guys are doing well. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Morning, everybody. Get started on this warm up. Let me know if you have questions. Good morning, guys. Let's finish up this warm up. Let me know if you have questions. Don't forget to do your health wellness check-in as well if you're at school. We can add another minute. Good morning, everybody. Make sure you guys take a second to get this warm-up done. If you are at school and you need to do your wellness check, make sure you get that done. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at these warm-up problems. If you guys have any issues with the process of going over these, just let me know, and I'll help you guys out. Okay. So today we're going to be doing our last day in 9.3. We're going to take a look at approximations of square roots, and we'll talk about how to do that, and we'll get ready to go. And I got some more to talk about in a little bit, but that's it for right now. Okay, so again, this is what we were working on last time, right? So we had this idea that there's stuff inside the square, right? So when there's stuff inside the square, that means after we square root and do the plus or minus, then we have additional things we need to do. So there's some stuff to do at the end. So taking a look at this, the first thing we always want to do is we want to isolate our squared term. So to do that, I notice that I have 3 times whatever this is squared. So I want to get rid of that 3 times. So the opposite of multiply is divide. Okay, so I go like that. So I get 2x, the quantity of 2x minus 1 squared equals, and then 3 goes into 27 9 times. Okay. So once we get to this piece, right, we want to, so the squared term's by itself. So I want to square root both sides. Now, we have to remember, when we square root a square, the square and the square root go away. But when you square root a square, we're going to get 2 answers. We're going to get 2x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 9. Okay? And it turns out the square root of 9 is a really nice number. It's just 3. So I get 2x minus 1 equals plus or minus 3, right? So the square root of 9 is 3. And if you guys don't know that off the top of your head, you should always be checking in a calculator like, hey, is this square root a whole number, right? So you can check your calculator. It will tell you. There's no need to worry about, hey, can I do this in my head or not? Okay. Now, what happens here, again, is I'm going to have 2 equations, right? So that's what the plus or minus means. So it means I'm going to have 2x minus 1 equals positive 3. And you're going to have 2x minus 1 equals negative 3. Okay, so we have, again, we have 2 different solutions because of the plus or minus, right? So the positive is a positive 3, and then we have the minus 3. So we're going to solve both of these. So again, I'm going to try to isolate the x. I'm going to start with addition and subtraction. So here I'm adding 1 to both sides to get rid of that minus 1. So I'm going to get 2x equals 3 plus 1 is 4. And then I want to divide by 2 like that. And I get x equals 2. So that's one of my solutions. And then the other one of my solutions, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add 1 to negative 3, right? So again, a calculator here is really helpful if you're not comfortable doing this in your head. So I'm going to have 2x equals negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Again, if you're not comfortable with doing that in your head, use a calculator. It will do all the arithmetic for you. And then I'm going to divide by 2 like this. And I get x equals negative 2 divided by 2. That's negative 1. Okay, so those are my 2 answers. I got 2 and negative 1. Does anybody have any questions about that? Haven't really heard from anyone today, so hopefully this broadcast is working and you guys can hear me and see what I'm doing. Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate that. Thanks for the feedback. That way I know I'm not just talking to myself, right? My internet's not on or something. So no questions on this first one. You guys are feeling pretty good. If you guys are feeling pretty good, this is good, guys. This is good if we're feeling good. So just remember, right, there's a lot of steps here, right? So when the more steps we have, the more chance we have to making a mistake, and mistakes happen. So if you guys are making mistakes all the time, let's try to identify where the mistake is and how we can avoid it in the future. All right. Okay, so same type of problem, right? We have a squared term, but it's just on the inside. So I'm going to try to get the squared by itself first. So I have a minus 2 here, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Okay, I'm going to end up with the quantity of 3x plus 4 squared, and then 11 plus 2 is, why can't I think that, okay, 13, woof, okay, on the spot there. So 11 plus 2 is 13, and then I'm going to square root both sides, because I got the squared term by itself. So whenever I square root a squared, those go away. I'm going to be left with 3x plus 4, and then we have to remember to do plus or minus square root of 13. Now, if you check your calculator on this, and we're going to be doing more with this today, But if you get square root 13 here, oops, square root 13, and you hit enter, so my calculator doesn't even tell me. It's just like, dude, trust me, you just leave it like that. And then it's this ugly decimal. So square root of 13, when my calculator does that, it means that it's not a whole number. So what we're going to do, and we're going to learn more about this today, so this is a great segue into what we're going to do today, is what do we do when we get the square root? Well, for right now, we can just leave it. And what I mean by that is, from here, we're going to write two equations. We're going to have 3x plus 4 equals square root of 13. And we're going to have 3x plus 4 equals negative square root of 13. Notice how the negative's on the outside. Okay, so it's kind of like, so this is kind of new, and I wanted to expose you to this in the warm-up, right? Like, what the heck do we do with the square root? Well, the answer is we're either going to leave it to get what's called an exact answer, that is, we're not rounding, or we type it into a calculator and we get a decimal, and that's called the approximate answer because we're going to be rounding. Because this is called an irrational number, which means the decimal goes on forever. So whatever decimal you do write down is an approximation. Cool stuff, right? So to solve this, for example, if I wanted the exact answer, I would subtract 4 from both sides. On the left side, right, that means the 4 goes away. But what do I do on the right side? Now, we could type this in the calculator, but we don't want to. So we're just going to say, hey, that's something that I'm not going to do right now, right? And that's kind of cool. So it looks weird, but it's just like, I don't want to do this. Okay, so I'm not going to. So this is the square root of 13 minus 4, and we can just write it like that. Now, at any point, we could type this into our calculator, but we're not going to until the very end if we want. So I have 3 times x. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And again, we don't have to do this. We can just leave our answer like this and be like, hey, this is called our exact answer. And see how it's x equals, right? So this is called the exact answer. Right? So this is the exact answer, okay? Because if you try to type this into a calculator, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. So I have square root of 13, and then that minus 4, all over 3. And the cool thing about these, right, calculators or Desmos, if you don't have a calculator, Desmos does the exact same thing, is that this is the exact answer. That's what I have written here. And if I hit enter, oops, it's going to do that, but I can go like this. It's going to give me an approximation, right? So what I'm going to write here is x, and then I'm going to make my equal sign kind of squiggly. That means approximate. So equals approximately negative 0.131. So this is our approximation, which can be abbreviated as approx, right? Approximation. Okay. Now, notice here, right, this isn't, I didn't write down, right, we can't possibly write down the whole number. So which is why it's, we're going to talk about this today. So you have your exact answer. That's what you type in at the very end to your calculator. And then you have what your calculator gives you. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. And I get 3x, here, let's do a little space here, 3x equals negative root 13 minus 4. Right? See how I'm just leaving it. And then I divide by 3. And then I just leave it all there. So negative square root of 13 minus 4 over 3. So that's my exact answer. And then I can just go like this, and I can add a negative in front of the 13. Oops, or can I? There we go. And I get x is approximately negative 2.535. Right? So this is our approximate. Okay, and that's what the lesson is about today. It's when we have these non-whole number answers, right? We're going to have an exact and we're going to have an approximate. And the approximate is where we have to round. And so what we're going to practice tomorrow with this, right? The problems are going to say round to the second decimal place or the third decimal place. Right here I went to the third decimal place. So we're going to work on that. and do that, right? So because, and the nice thing about the exact is, if you guys have ever built something, sometimes you're making a really crude cut, and like you don't care to like the hundredth place how accurate the cut is. You just want to cut. Okay. An example of this is like if you're building a fence and you're just lopping off the top of your fence post, like it doesn't matter if it's off a tenth of an inch, right? But if you're building something really precise like a dollhouse, right, then precision really matters, and you might pull out your more precise cutting tools. And so that's why it's nice to have the exact, because you can get a quick measurement for when you just need a quick measurement, or you can get a more precise measurement if you need a more precise, right? But if you just wrote down the approximate, it's really hard to get more exact, right? You kind of stop there. That's why it's nice to have that one. Does anybody have questions about this last one? I'm sure people were a little bit confused when they saw the square root in there. You guys doing okay? Anybody have any questions or anything about the steps that we did? You guys can turn on your mic to ask questions, or you can use chat to ask questions. No, you guys are good? Okay, thanks guys. All right, so let's really talk about this approximation today, okay? So again, this is gonna be 9.3, we're on day 3, and we're gonna be talking about how the heck do we do, approximations. Okay, and approximations, so this symbol right here is approximate, right? So this symbol is equal or exact. Okay, and this symbol right here is approximate. Okay, or rounded. Okay, so those are the kind of the new symbol we're going to be doing right here. So it's just like an equal sign, but wavy. Okay, so it's not straight and defined. It's wavy. It's close to equal, right? So what we're going to do today is when we get these irrational square roots, that is decimals that go on forever, how do we write the answer? Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm really going to focus on, because I never believe you should just have an approximate answer, we're going to talk about how to get the exact answer and how to use the exact answer to get the rounded answer. Okay, and then as we're going through, guys, please, I encourage you, if I say anything that's confusing, please chip in. If I'm going too fast, say something, and I can help you guys out from there. Okay, all right. So let's just dive right in and let's do an example. Okay, so for our example, so we have this new approximate idea here. We're going to solve 4x squared minus 13 equals 15. Okay, so we're going to solve this just like we would. The only difference is at the end, we're going to have an exact answer and a rounded answer. Okay, so to do this, where'd my red pen go? So to do this, the first thing we always want to do is isolate the term that has what I'm solving for, right? But right now there's this other term here, this minus 13. So I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm going to add 13 to both sides. When I do that, I get 4x squared equals, and then, if you can't do things quickly in your head, right, that's why we have a calculator to do arithmetic for us. So 15 plus 13 is 28. Okay. Then I get 4 times x, so I want to undo the multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead here and divide both sides by 4. And I'm going to get x squared equals, now I go over here and I go 28 divided by 4, and I get 7. Okay. And then, so that was the first step, right? In red is we're going to get the squared term by itself, right? And I can even add that as a note here, right? We're getting, so first, right, we get the squared term. So first, we get the squared term by itself. Okay, and that's what I'm doing there. And then, right, then we're going to get the x by itself. So I'm going to square root both sides. Now, when I square root both sides, the square and the square root are going to go away. So I'm going to get x, and then I'm going to have plus or minus 7, right? So this is square both sides. Square root. Okay, now remember when we square root a square, we're going to get a plus or minus. So when we get the plus or minus here, I'm going to break this up into 2 equations. So I'm going to get x equals root 7 or x equals negative root 7. Now, these answers, these are exact. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to approximate this. Now, in what we're going to be doing tomorrow, our practice problems are going to have us round to the second decimal place. So underneath here, I'm going to do our approximations. To the second decimal. Okay, so this will require a calculator. So, and it doesn't matter. Sorry, I moved it down. I just realized that as well. Thank you for pointing that out. So what we need to do is we need to use a calculator, whether you're using a physical calculator or the calculator on Desmos. Okay. And we're going to type this in. So just like how it is. So I'm going to go square root of 7. So when I do that, now if the calculator just gives you an exact, there's a couple of different ways to do that. If you're using a physical calculator, you want to hit this double arrow button. And on Desmos, there's a button that looks like this. But I don't think Desmos does what this one does. So if you are using a physical calculator, go ahead and hit that double arrow button, and it should give me a decimal. If you're working with a calculator right now and you're not getting a decimal, let me know right now so I can help you out. But I'm going to get here that x equals, now if I'm going to the second decimal place, right? So I'm going to go 1, 2. So we're going to look to the one to the right of it, and if it's 5 or higher, then we have to round the previous one up. So if I look to the right, this is 5 or higher. So I'm going to have to write 2.65. And this is why it's called a rounded answer, because, right, we have to round somewhere to get my answer. Okay, so this is an approximation. So it's approximately 2.65. Okay. All right. So just boom, like that. Does anybody have questions about that? Are you guys able to get 2.65? Right, so just over here, right, square root of 7, we get 2.64575. So to round, right, so we're going to round here. So you look, right, you look at the third. So if the third is 5 or higher, then that's what we're doing there. Okay. So we're rounding to the second decimal, and we're looking at the third. So 5 or higher, we round up. Okay, so we're looking at the third decimal, and if it's 5 or higher, we round up. You guys remember doing that? Are we doing okay, guys? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, we're gonna keep practicing this. So then we also have to do the negative one, right? So in this case, it's really easy because it's just gonna be the negative of what we just did, right? So it's just gonna be negative of what we just did. So I'm gonna have here x equals, and then I take a look at this, I look at the second, the third is 5 or higher, so it's gonna be negative 2.65. So in this case, they were the same number. One was positive, one was negative. But that's not always going to be the case. Okay? So that's the process, right? Overly complicated process, just trying to take notes on this. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to have you guys practice a few of these, and then we're going to see, hey, where are the mistakes happening? And then we'll go from there. All right. Does anybody have questions before we move on and try our own? Anybody have comments or questions? All right, let's move on. Let's try one. Let's try a few. Okay. I'm trying to save some paper here, so ignore. I guess you guys can't see that here. We'll ignore everything above that. So we're gonna have one that's try on your own. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve. We're going to have, what do we have here? 2x squared plus 10 equals 32. So let's just start there. So I'm going to have you guys try this one on your own. And we're going to be getting, we're going to approximate. So we're going to round to the second decimal. Okay. And then I'm going to put up a little timer to keep track of time. So I think this should take no longer, let's try 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm going to say, yeah, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Okay. All right, guys, give this a shot. And then if you get stuck, you can always ask for help in the chat or use your microphone. All right, guys, hopefully that was enough time for you guys to take a look at this. Let's go ahead and solve this. And again, if you guys have questions or you're getting stuck, let's figure out where we're getting stuck or where we're making mistakes so that when we do this again in the future, we can be like, hey, I don't want to make those mistakes again. Okay. So I have 2x squared plus 10 equals 32. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate this x squared. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. I get 2x squared equals 10, or 32 minus 10 is 22. And then I divide by 2. I get x squared equals 11. Okay. So now that I've isolated the squared term, I'm going to square root both sides. And I'm going to get x equals plus or minus the square root of 11. So I'm going to get x equals square root of 11 and x equals negative square root of 11. So then what I'm going to do in my calculator to get the approximate answer is I'm just going to go and say, hey, what's the square root of 11? So I do that and I get, it is approximately, now again, we want to look at the second decimal and we're going to look at the third one to see if we round up or just stay the same. So this is going to be, so this is 1. The one to the right of it is 5 or higher. So I'm going to round the second decimal up. So I'm going to get x equals positive 3.32 and x equals negative 3.32. Okay, so those are my approximations rounded to the second decimal place. Okay, and check, see how you guys did. Did you guys do okay? Did you guys get stuck? Did we make a mistake? Where did we make a mistake? Let me know, guys, how I can help. And if you're feeling confident and good with this, then excellent. We're gonna add one more degree of difficulty to this in just a second. So if you're struggling, you should let me know, because if no one says anything, I'm just going to assume that means you guys are doing great. All right, so I haven't heard anything back from anyone, so we're just going to move on. It seems like you guys are doing great. Okay, so I'm going to make up a couple other problems for us. So this is another try on your own. Okay, so for this one, you guys are going to solve, let's see, let's do 5 times the quantity of 3x squared minus 4. Oops, nope. No x squared there. We're going to do a squared here. Sorry about that. Ignore that. So just 5 times the quantity of 3x minus 4, and then all of that squared. And then this is going to equal 27. Okay. And we're going to round to the second decimal. Okay, so we're going to round to the second decimal. And I'm going to give you guys the same amount of time on this one. And again, if you guys are getting confused or stuck, just let me know. All right, guys. So hopefully that was enough time. Again, if you guys have questions, please let me know. Let me know. I want to help you guys out. You gotta let me know that you need help. Okay. So let's go ahead and solve this. So this one looks a little bit different than our last one because we have stuff inside the square. So I'm just going to rewrite it over here. So I'm going to have 5 times the quantity of 3x minus 4, all that squared, equals 27. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get the squared term by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 5. Okay, like that. I'm going to get 3x minus 4 quantity squared equals, now 27 divided by 5 is not a nice number. So there's a couple of things we can do. We can keep it as a fraction, or we can, so this one is a rational fraction, which means that the answer is not a repeat or a decimal that goes on forever. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as a fraction because you know what? I'm lazy. And this is just what you do when you're just like, oh man, that division, it's not a nice number, so I'm just going to leave it. Okay. So then I got the square by itself. So I'm just going to go square root both sides like this. Okay, so I have square root of a square. So I'm going to get 3x minus 4 equals, and then I have plus or minus the square root of this ugly thing. Okay, and again, I'm just going to leave it like that. So what does plus or minus mean? Plus or minus means I'm going to have, I have 2 equations. I haven't solved for x yet. So x isn't by itself. I'm not done. So I'm going to get 3x minus 4 equals the square root of 27 divided by 5. And I'm going to get 3x minus 4 equals the negative square root of 27 divided by 5. So again, it looks ugly, but the calculator is going to do all of this for us. Okay. So I'm going to stop here for a second. Are you guys doing okay with this? Does anybody have questions? Right, so I took the square root of both sides. I got plus or minus. Like the fraction's weird, right? But the fraction doesn't matter to us because the calculator is going to do all the heavy lifting, right? So it doesn't matter how ugly it looks. Calculator doesn't care. So I'm going to solve now for x. So again, we start with addition, subtraction. So I'm going to go add 4 to both sides like this. So I get 3x equals, and it's just the ugly bits. Sorry, I'm running out of room. Plus 4, right? So it's just that plus 4. And then I divide by 3. So I get x, divide by 3. I get x equals, here, I'm going to go over here. I ran out of room. I'm going to get x equals the square root of 27 divided by 5 plus 4 all over 3. Okay, so that's this answer. And then here I'm going to do the same thing, right? I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I get 3x equals negative square root of 27 divided by 5 plus 4. And then as you can see here, I'm just going to divide by 3 on both sides. So I get x equals negative square root of 27 over 5 plus 4 over 3. Okay, so these right here are my exact answers, right? But it wants us to round. So my approximate answers, we're going to have to do in a calculator. Oh yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to go too fast. I can hold up for a little bit and let me know if I didn't explain something. Right, so all I did here at the beginning is I was getting my squared term by itself, so I just did that by dividing by 5. 27 divided by 5 wasn't a nice number, so I just left it as a fraction. I square rooted both sides, which means I got plus or minus this. And since x isn't solved for already, right, we're going to have 2 equations. We're going to have 3x minus 4 equals positive square root of 27 fifths. And we're going to have 3x minus 4 equals negative square root of 7 over 5, okay, or 27. So then I just solved for x, right? So on both of these, I added 4 to both sides. And then I had 3 times x, so I divided both sides by 3. So you can see here, I have the square root of 27/5 plus 4 divided by 3. And then here I have negative square root of 27/5 plus 4 divided by 3. Okay, so it just looks ugly. But the cool thing about looking bad, scary, is that it's not really that scary because our calculator will do the rest for us. So all I have to do is go one at a time. Right, so I'm just going to start out with a little fraction. And then on the top, I'm going to have square root. And then you can put another fraction inside there. So 27 over 5. And then I'm going to get out of the square root. And I'm going to say, hey, plus 4. Right, so that's looking just like I have here. And then on the bottom, I'm going to put 3. Okay, and then I hit enter. And hey guys, Desmos. Okay, so where am I losing people, guys? Because I think you guys, is it just because the square root of 27 over 5 looks weird? Where did I lose people? Yeah, so that's it. It's just square root of 27 over 5 is a number. It just looks weird. That's it. I mean, it'd be like if I put an 8 here, we would do the same thing, right? So if this was plus or minus 8, then you'd have 3x minus 4 equals 8, and you'd have 3x minus 4 equals negative 8. So this is a number. We just, right? So we just are saving it until the end because we don't want to round. So this number is a number that's just a decimal going on forever. So if we round it here, then we're going to have error here, and we're going to have error here. So just think of this as like a number. So if this was 8, right? So if we had 3x minus 4 is plus or minus 8, then we would add 4 to both sides, and we would divide by 3, right? And then here we would add 4 to both sides and then divide by 3. So it doesn't matter that it looks ugly because, again, in my calculator, right? The calculator, you can input that just fine in the calculator, right? So it's the square root of 27 over 5, and then you have plus 4, and then divided by 3. So it does. So right. So if this was 8, it would just look like 8. So it doesn't matter what this looks like. All the math that we've been doing all year still works, right? So it doesn't matter if it was a pineapple, right? You can be like, hey, this is a pineapple. So we'd have plus or minus pineapple. So to solve it, I'd have 3x minus 4 equals a pineapple. 3x minus 4 equals a negative pineapple. And then to solve these, you would add 4 to both sides and then divide by 3. Okay, so don't be intimidated by how it looks because it doesn't matter how it looks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to give me a decimal. So I'm going to round to the second decimal. So notice if I look at the second decimal, that's a 0. So if I look to the right, is it 5 or higher? It is 5 or higher. So I'm going to go back and round this up. So I'm going to have 2.11 as, oops, and I should have done an approximation, should have made these wavy. Okay, so this is my approximation. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing, but for negative, right? So in my calculator, I can make a fraction. I can go negative square root. I can put another fraction in there, and Desmos does all of this, guys, right? He just has the fraction button, just like we've been using, and then plus 4, and then divided by 3. So again, just make sure it looks, so again, I recommend Desmos. If you're not using this calculator, Desmos does the same functionality. So right here I have negative square root of 27 over 5, so that's this, plus 4 divided by 3. So I get x is approximately, let's hit enter, let's see what we get. 0. And then I'm going to look at the second decimal, and I'm going to look at the third. So if the third is 5 or higher, then I'm going to round up. So this would be approximately 0.56. Okay, so those are my approximations. Like that. All right, so it sounds like people are struggling with this just because the square root of 27/5 looks ugly. Okay, but it doesn't matter what it looks like, right? To undo addition, you do subtraction. To undo multiplication, you do division. right? All that stuff is still true, even if it looks weird, okay? So we're gonna practice this one again and see if we can make some progress with it, right? So don't get hung up on what it looks like. We can do, right? That's the thing, the beauty about math. It works no matter what it looks like, no matter where you are, no matter when you are. It is universally true, no matter what. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at another one. Does anybody have any other questions about this before I move on? Okay. So and just remember, like this is what we were doing in the warm-up, right? Where we isolate the squared and we do plus or minus, we have 2. So the only difference now is that this number doesn't look nice. So this is exactly what we were doing in the warm-up. Okay, the only difference is that the numbers aren't pretty anymore. They aren't whole numbers anymore. Okay, that's the only thing we're changing today. Okay, so if you could do the warm-up, I guarantee you can do these. Okay, so let's do another try on your own. So we're going to solve. Let's do 7 times the quantity of 4x minus 5 quantity squared equals, let's do 18. Okay, and we're going to round to the second decimal. Okay, so again, I know you guys can do this. If you can do the warm-up, it's the same thing. It's just instead of whole numbers, we have an ugly number. Okay, so give it a try, see what you get, and then we'll talk. So here we go. All right, was that enough time, guys, for you guys to figure this out? Do you guys want a little bit more time? How are we feeling? Okay, so don't let, oh, you guys need a little bit more time. Okay, here, we can do that. How much more time? A minute or half a minute? Okay. Hey guys, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to have to go over this right now. Okay. Because again, we're almost out of time. So I apologize if you're not done yet, but I do need to get going on this. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is isolate the squared term. So I'm going to get rid of that 7. 7 doesn't go into 18. So I'm just going to have the quantity of 4x minus 5 squared equals, and then I'm just going to leave it like this, right? So, and then I just want you guys to know, right? 18 divided by 7 is a number. Okay. So then I'm going to square root both sides like this. So the square root and the square go away. So I get 4x minus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 18 over 7. Okay, right? This is a number. So what does the plus or minus mean? It means I'm going to have two equations. So I'm going to have 4x minus 5 equals the positive square root of 18 over 7. Or I'm going to have 4x minus 5 equals the negative square root of 18 over 7. Okay, so I'm going to have plus or minus. And I'm sorry that I'm going quickly, but I need to. So I'm going to solve for x, right? So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So when I do that, I get 4x equals the square root of 18 over 7 plus 5, right? So there's just that plus 5 there. Just write it over here. And then I'm going to divide by 4. So I get x equals the square root of 18 over 7 plus 5 over 4. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to add 5, divide by 4. I have to speed up, so I get negative square root of 18 divided by 7 plus 5 over 4. And then I'm going to have to type this into my calculator really quickly because we're almost out of time. So I'm going to get the square root of 18 over 7 plus 5. Oops, nope, I did that wrong. Okay, plus 5 over 4. And I get approximately 1.65. 1.65. And then if I do the negative one, so I'll have to go here and add in a negative, I get x is approximately 0.85. Okay, so those are my two answers there. Okay, all right, I have to end class, guys. We're going to work more on this tomorrow.